PayPal has tried to get a quiet license in China. And when I was working at Wise, and so did Wise. So licenses in China is quite rare. And yeah, we are lucky that we are holding that for 20 years already. And so we, as a licensee, we have the regulatory know-how from operating at a massive scale. So that is the best defense. And of course, again, like the local settlement rails, we can provide the instant payments, which is not a very few provider can do. We have a very mature fraud and compliance systems built in-house for cross-border goods trades, travel industry as well. So that is extremely hard for competitors to copy.
Hi, Markus. Hi, all. Very nice welcome on Aulium. Markus, a pleasure again.
Good to be back.
So we are super excited today because we are having a discussion with Derick Li. So Derick Li, nice welcome on Aulium for the first time. Pleasure to have you on board.
Hi, and bonjour, Thomas. Thank you.
So yeah, but thank you to you really. So Derick, you are the CEO of Yeepay UK. So you'll tell us a bit more in a few minutes about Yeepay, but it's a payment provider born in China. You've essentially spent quite some time in the FinTech space between China and Europe. So it gives you like I think like a very good perspective on both worlds. Let's say, like a good perspective on, global internationalization, sorry. So, I mean, we really can't wait to dig into this with you a bit further. So you are now based in London, but really like traveling back and forth between China, Europe, and your different geographies. So maybe to kickstart the discussion, do you mind spending a bit of time explaining us what Yeepay is? So it's a payment provider, but a bit specific. So if you could essentially explain what it is and where it sits in the value chain, in the payment value chain, that would be terrific to kickstart the discussion.
Yeah, sure. The simple version is this. Yeepay helps businesses move monies between Europe and China safely, quickly, at a much lower cost. So if you imagine the payments world as a long train, from the bank to the payment processor to the currency exchange provider to settlements, we sit right in the middle. We plug everyone together and make the money move smoother and faster. So right now, in traditional way, say a UK company wants to pay a supplier in China in Chinese yuan. Normally, it is low and expensive and full of admin work if they are sending the money through the bank. With Yeepay, that money can be settled fast enough through our local rails in China. So that can be done within a minute.
Okay, so it's very much like based on transfer between China and somewhere else.
Yes, you can imagine just like you're paying a local UK recipient with the faster payment.
Okay, understood. And so could you maybe spend some time on, how the business evolved? So, I mean, it was based in China. I mean, at the beginning, now it's becoming really an international group. So you're being really everywhere in Europe, in the US, etc. Could you spend some time maybe on the history of the company from inception to today to give a bit of, background on the company itself?
Yeah, of course. So Yeepay started almost 20 years ago as one of the first licensed payment service provider in China. So back then, the mission was simple, helping Chinese businesses to settle and collect money online, targeting to e-commerce, airlines, government sectors, educations, you name it. So as the Chinese company went global, their payment needs to went global as well. So they need a settlement in different countries, ethics, compliance, and someone who really understands both sides. So the company naturally evolved from a domestic processor into a cross-border payment network. Today, we are connecting European institutions straight into Chinese payment ecosystem, something that used to be very difficult for overseas players.
Okay. And so where are you strong today? Like, so you mentioned e-commerce. Are there any like other subsectors where you are particularly present? And maybe if you could give us like a very simple example of a use case that would be quite helpful to understand the mechanics.
Yeah, I think our strength will be about speed and cost. Taking an example again, if you are like it's a European payment network is quite mature, but imagine we are emerging markets like Africa where don't have not everyone has a bank account. They are very relying on remittance firms or the e-pay e-wallets right now. While if they want to pay to China, traditionally they would have to go to a remittance booth offline and give them the cash, and then waiting for days after that you don't even know if the money will be received until the recipient manually told them. So right now, what we're doing is we partner with some African remittance fintech, allow their wallet users can pay instantly to China. So that is a huge jump for emerging markets. So I think that's the strongest for the ePay right now. And of course, while we evolving integrating with a lot of banks, global banks in the mature markets as well as other fintechs as well.
And so, I mean, if we were comparing Yeepay to a Stripe, I mean, what would be the major differences?
Yeah, great question because Stripe is positioning themselves as um a acquirer and as well as a payment gateway, while ePay for overseas markets, we position ourselves as a infrastructure provider. While so imagine a Chinese e-commerce sellers are selling goods through Stripe using Stripe payment gateway when they are collecting the payments from a UK customer through Stripe, the payment will go from the UK customer to Stripe account first, and then Stripe will settle the payment into the China seller. So through this rail, Stripe is usually using bank network for the payment, and which goes to a traditional issues again. It could be slow or it could be expensive, and it could charge the Chinese e-sellers a extra fee on the FX from GBP to Chinese yuan. And I would say ePay is solving this issue where we provide a cheaper conversion rates and the settlement speed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we are not competitive with Stripe. We can actually providing our capability to Stripe as well.
Okay, so yeah, you are sitting really on the infrastructure side, and you would have like the Stripe there, and you organize like the entire treatment of the payment afterwards in some way. And so in the early days of Yeepay, so from my understanding and from what you said, so it was like a local solution. So at the beginning, the products and the services provided were quite similar to what a Stripe would provide today, correct?
Yes, that's you can treat that as a China version of Stripe when when we were in China. But if we are seeing a better apple to apple example, we are a version of Adyen in China.
Okay, got it. And so in terms of business model, so how do you make money as an infrastructure provider, really? Who do you charge on what sort of services, etc.?
So frankly speaking, we're not making a lot because we our mission is to providing moving money around faster and cheaper. So meaning cheaper than that means we are not making a whole lot. But the revenue drivers is really because hold the treasury in Chinese yuan. So we provide the foreign exchange, we can make a bit from the exchange.
Okay, so it's mostly FX or it's also processing?
Mostly FX processing, yes, we provide that as well because since we have a full set of license in China, so we can provide a local settlements for the overseas providers. So we do have that. We do have revenues from that.
Okay, understood. And so can you give us some numbers maybe to illustrate the size of Yeepay, maybe in volumes of payment that are treated through your infrastructure? I mean, I don't know if you can reveal the revenues, for example, or profits or anything like this,
Yeah.
but just so we can grasp the size.
Yes. Sure. So right now we are processing over 50 billion US annually, and we serve about 5 million enterprise customers from SMEs to large platforms, even government in China. Globally, we have over 800 employees with new teams now, including me in London, Amsterdam, even Nigeria.
Okay, so yeah, it's very much global. Maybe like one sort of quick follow-up questions on this. So you said you were serving a few millions of customers. So let's say I'm an e-commerce website. I'm using Stripe as a payment gateway. At what point in time do I know essentially you, that you exist? And when will I essentially choose you? Because once I have Stripe there, I mean, most probably I'm not thinking about it too much anymore, and I collect payments, etc. I mean, at what point in time you can arrive, and who is essentially your client? I mean, we'll dig into this a bit later, but I think you develop the business a lot through partnerships. But you know, if I'm at the e-commerce website, I mean, at what point in time am I aware of your existence?
So since we are position ourselves in overseas, we are a infrastructure player provider to, for example, to Stripe. The customers, the e-sellers, doesn't really see our presence throughout their journey. I think that is actually the beauty about our model, because we are not trying to getting the customers from our partners. Instead, we're working with them.
Okay, understood. So, I mean, in fine, yeah, you would interact. I mean, the end client would essentially not really know about your existence, but it's going to be their payment, let's say, processor that will essentially use you more versus another kind of solution. And this is how you enter like the payment processing
Correct.
system, essentially.
In this, actually, this few years, the whole payment processors are evolving as well. So a lot of players like Stripe, they are backed by different providers. So they can try to control the rails with the best options at that time being. So that, I think that is the beauty.
Great. Yeah, really, really interesting. Thanks for that. So moving on to the personal side and maybe your personal journey. So starting out, you built your career across China, Hong Kong, and wider Asia, and now the UK as well. How did you first get into payments and fintech?
Yeah, so my first job was working in Alibaba. So it's a tech giant as well. When I joined, I was working at the import and export platform, where connecting overseas buyers to find China suppliers. So while we are growing the platforms, we receive the demands from our buyers on how to secure their goods. Since back in the days, this is not common for buyers not having a local presence or meeting in person to the China supplier, right? So they feel a bit like this is too new for them. So from that, Alibaba had a plan about new payment solutions for the buyer. So where escrow account was happening. So I was involving this new project to learn about cross-border payments. And as you all know, like as the e-commerce uh, thriving in the past 10 years. And so the cross-border payment grow as well. And from there, I moved from Alibaba and then my second job to Tencent, where I was playing a key part for bringing WeChat Pay from China to the globe. So that helped me to touch on consumer market as well. And from there, Wise also wants to expand from Europe to APAC, where I got the opportunity to do their reps for the APAC markets, growing the markets in APAC. So sitting on the opposite side of the table, and yeah, so that really come on growing and growing, and now I moved to UK, and I'm glad that I helping ePay to expand to the Europe as well.
Yeah, and what was so as you moved here, what were some of the key steps that led you becoming to becoming the CEO essentially of the UK arm of Yeepay?
So there are two. I would say I learned both of the culture. So I've been working some years in China tech as well as WISE, the European tech as well. So I have a mix of the cultures to how we helping the company have a global expansion. And the second, which is as a CEO, you have to bear the business growth, the go-to-market strategy, as well as licensing as well. So there's a lot throughout my career journey. I have all this experience, and yeah, so very luckily, I'm very grateful that now I can sit on as a CEO for the Yeepay UK.
Yeah, fantastic. And so it's interesting, you've moved across China and Europe quite a lot. So just looking back at your moves between Asia and Europe, what have been the biggest personal and professional adjustments that you've had to make along the way?
I would say speed and structure. Yeah, if you guys have been into Asia, Asia moves incredibly fast. Decision make happens in hours. In the other world, the side, you move more mathematically, more stakeholders alignment, more due diligence. So personally, I have learned patience in Europe and how to maintain pace in China or Hong Kong.
Yeah, the best of both worlds. That's very true. I remember that when I was in China last year, visiting factories and using actually Alipay and WeChat Pay a lot. But you talked about these working styles. So China versus Europe. China being a little bit fast paced, and Europe being very much looking at the process side of things. So from your own experience, are there any other main differences in the way that people work or make decisions in Chinese organizations with European ones? So next to the one that you already mentioned with sort of the speed and the fast pacedness?
Yes, one common culture in China is the decisions are centralized and top down as well. So teams move in a straight line very quickly, following the decisions from the top. And people optimize for speed and execution. So we have a term about SOP. I forgot what's that referring to, but the SOP happens in a lot of it happens on trying to standardize a procedures. That usually we have these terms for factory, but now also in the tech culture as well, how we optimize speed is the key in China. While Europe, again, decisions are cooperative. There are more debates. People optimize for clarity and process. So yeah, both style works. They solve different problem in different way.
Okay, maybe like a question on sort of working culture. So we are talking a lot, we are hearing a lot about the 996 way of working that is now applied in startups in the US, and then they say that they got this from the Chinese. So how would you compare? So we understood like decision making is quite different and execution is different, but do you see like a big difference in how the Europeans work? I mean, do you feel that they are taking a bit more their time, or in terms of productivity? What do you think about like the two worlds really?
It's a huge there's a huge gap in terms of the mindset. While the European are having a vision and have a long-term goal to achieving that vision. And the employees, especially the startup, they join with passionate to meeting that mission. So there's a lot of the journey would usually take longer. While China is, I would say, a lot of APAC companies startup, they would start thinking on when they start a business, they think of how to survive at the very beginning. So when I work in Tencent, we have a term called, small step but quick pace. So so we just keep a lot of try and error, try and trial to try to get the way to success.
Yeah, makes sense. And in terms of what you would maybe copy and what you would avoid. So if you could take one thing you really admire from the Chinese way of working, I mean, you already mentioned the fast-paced nature of it, but is there anything else that you would take and inject it into European companies? I mean, is that even possible working in a European company at that pace, or is there something else you would maybe suggest that you would inject into European working styles?
Yeah, I would say the balance. The best scenario will be, the best case will be having a balance, while to have a pretty agile culture in European, and having like the human touch, really like the clarity, having a lot of not debates but bottom up communications within the company. I think that would be the best mix. And from there, that really, I would say that depends on the management style, how they want to massage this balance while having a huge pressure on the business growth.
Interesting. So yeah, a lot of grassroots, bottom-up communication, but then also the speed as well that you can see in China. Interesting. Leading a UK team for a Chinese group in particular. So just a follow-on question there. As a UK CEO of a Chinese headquartered business, so how do you adapt your leadership style for a London-based team while staying aligned with the group in China effectively?
Yes. So my job is to be a bridge. I translate what China wants into a way that makes sense in London, and I translate what the UK market needs into a way for the group that can add on. For the UK team, I lead with usually autonomous and clarity. And for the China group, I focus on speed and transparency. So, but anyway, the goal is simple. So, one team, two cultures, and try to work seamlessly.
Yeah, very interesting. So you have to have two hats almost at the same time. Super interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not wrong, but you're also right.
So you need to speak really two languages at once.
Yes, in a way, the language, a lot of my China teammates, they speak very well English. It's just about the culture again. Yeah, but they are adapting fast. That's where I appreciate a lot.
Okay. And do you think, like, maybe a follow-up questions on culture, like, do you think it's like the Europeans that needs to essentially adapt to, let's say, more Chinese culture, or is it the reverse, like the Chinese will need to essentially adapt, to local people? How does it play out in the office? So I understand there may be some sort of a balance, but is it more like the people working here, by here, I mean in London with you, they need to essentially learn a new way of working and they need to adapt? Or is it the reverse? You, the Chinese mothership, essentially sees new workers and they need to adapt to the way they do things?
Because it is the China tech, FinTech going to overseas, have to set themselves an open mind. So most of the case, they will want to learn what is the overseas culture about.
Maybe moving on to the market, like really to understand a bit better, like the payment space. So how big is the opportunity for you guys when we think about domestic China, outbound payment, inbound payment, etc., between, let's say, China and the rest of the world where you are present? How big is this opportunity really?
Yes, I'll say the opportunity for ePay in domestic is huge. We have been in the market for 20 years. Having said that, it is extremely competitive on the business growth as well as the profit margins. As we all know, like when a red ocean happens in markets, then it's going to be a very competitive market as well. So having said that, when we outbound the Chinese merchants, like exporters, e-commerce represent a massive and fast-growing segment. Even it have been already happening in 10 years. So just some figures about cross-border e-commerce from China. We have about over 250 billion US in last year, and still with a 15% year-on-year growth. And other sector we are strong at is travel industry. Like now China is GDP is growing, and so we have a lot of outbound traveling as well. And just alone last year is already reaching 140 billion US, and we see a 13% YOY. So in the long run, we still have a lot of room to grow for overseas market.
Okay, and maybe like concern so cross-border payments, etc. And what are like the main forces at work which will dictate essentially your market? I imagine there is a lot of influences of tariffs, geopolitical situation, etc. I mean, do you see, weird things happening? There are weird things happening, but do you see any impact on the business as of today? And how maybe do you see the future? I mean, are you doing things maybe to protect yourself on some future problems between countries? Or
Yeah, that is a great question. So we see still a strong growth from a supply chain realignment because of the recent political changes as well. But essentially, we still have overseas buyer from needing the China sourcing because of the supply chain or happening in China. It's very difficult for them to moving away from a year or two. So we still seeing that, and with the tension between China and US, we see the China merchants are trying to diverse their buying markets, not only focus on US, but say European markets as well, as even emerging markets. As we know, the logistic chain is getting mature between China and Latin America as well as Africa. So we see a huge growth between these regions as well.
okay, understood. So regarding merchants and platform, trading between China and Europe, for example, what are the main like currency and FX risks they could be worried about? And and how do you, as a provider of infrastructure, maybe manage those risks or provide solutions for them?
Yeah. So the USD still dominate. So the USD and renminbi or Chinese yuan and the euro versus renminbi, but volatility. So that is the key. And we're trying to solve the unexpected FX losses while settlement happens days later. So because we can have the local settlement almost instant, then that helps on controlling the FX loss. So that is another benefits about the cash flow timing as well, when they pay suppliers versus when they get paid from the buyers. So imagine a Chinese merchants, we can offer them a euro local bank account, so they can get paid like a local and instant as well. And also now, as I said, like the European buyers can pay to China instant as well. So we are really offering a instant settlement or collections like a local.
Okay, got it. And maybe like in addition to those like FX risk and challenges, what are the other challenges and problem you can see with supply chain, being a bit more digitalized, etc. I mean, do you see any other problems that you would help solve in the
So
process?
the try to bring a seamless payment journey as much as the better the better. So we are evolving to a account to account payment. Imagine if we have the whole supply chain becoming ePay customers from the buyer in Europe, the middleman or Stripe, and we have the settlement in Hong Kong or a logistic provider somewhere else, and the supplier in China. If all of them becoming ePay customers, so if we own the treasury and we offering e-money, the virtual or digital wallet to all these customers, there are all settlements within accounts, which means the FX, whatever the settlement times will be solved. So that is the vision we have.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think that's really, really interesting what you've talked us through. So just talking through Yeepay's strategic advantage and the competitive landscape a little bit. When clients decide to choose you, when a client chooses Yeepay over a more, say, maybe established Western provider or like a local bank, for example, what are the one or two reasons that they usually give for going with you specifically versus somebody else?
So I think why the clients would choose us, the main reason we have full set of license in China. So we are fully compliant and we can settle money into China again faster and more reliable. Also, of course, a local Chinese capabilities like onboarding, the renminbi settlements, compliance are already built and proven in scale. So I think that is the edge for us.
Yeah, so the actual implementation within the Chinese market. I mean, when you go there and you pay with Alipay or WePay, I remember it can be sometimes difficult to make that connection, even if you're traveling within the country as a Westerner. So, I can only imagine that the additional solution within China is very helpful to have a provider for that. Apart from that, would you say that you have another specific competitive edge that you would point to next to that one?
Yes, we're also trying to build the bespoke solutions for enterprise as well. Um, because the experience we had in the travel industry sector, we see a lot of tailor-made we need, where not lots of competitors can do. I think that also takes into the development cost for the customer as well, right? So because we have a great tech team, so we can definitely have we have been improving a lot of enterprise tailor-made case.
Makes sense. And interesting. And so just thinking about the defensibility and your moat, when an investor asks what protects your Yeepay products from competition, how would you describe defensibility? So say for licenses, for example, regulation or local settlement capabilities, fraud tools, or anything that would fit into that space.
Yes, right now licenses is still the key. PayPal has tried to get a quiet license in China, and when I was working at Wise, and so did Wise. So licenses in China is quite rare, and yeah, we are lucky that we are holding that for 20 years already. And so we, as a licensee, we have the regulatory know-how from operating at a massive scale. So that is the best defense. And of course, again, like the local settlement rails, we can provide the instant payments, which is not a very few provider can do. We have a very mature fraud and compliance systems built in-house for cross-border goods trades, travel industry as well. So that is extremely hard for competitors to copy.
Hmm. And I mean, who would you say you really are competing with? Because you're such a unique, as you say, it's a unique solution in terms of the link within China and the local implementation. So, I mean, in Europe, who do you compete with here, really? Who would you say? Is it local fintechs, like traditional banks, or other kind of Chinese providers?
Yeah, I would say we are competing with banks, but in the meantime, we are partnering with them. So, so we are trying to be their correspondent bank for cross-border payment, and we are their clients for the local settlements and collection.
Yeah, makes sense. And then in terms of building the trust with, you mentioned banks, for example, building trust with these big Western partners. So you're partnering with large banks, you're partnering with lots of large groups to accelerate your expansion. From your perspective, what do specifically Western partners need to do or understand before they can become more comfortable in trusting a Chinese payment company with their customers and specifically the data element as well?
Yeah, to getting the trust, so first of all, we have to be transparent and showing our regulatory and compliance. So first of all, we start with clear data governance, a transparent compliance control that aligns with the Western markets, proof of operation reliability, a clear view of how funds move between China and Europe. So yeah, these are the four we very keen to focus.
Makes sense.
Okay, great. So maybe like you're jumping on this, how you deal with Western partners. And the first question is, for your expansion, I mean, why did you choose the UK within Europe to essentially set some form of a base here? And then follow-up question to that is, how do the Chinese corporate see Europe and the European market, in the world? Do they think about it? And when we look at the US and what they think about Europe, I mean, we have the feeling that we are essentially a developing country or like some sort of dying continent, great to visit. So why did you choose the UK to essentially set a foot in Europe, and what for? And second, how do you see, for you being the group, the European market?
So there are two key elements. So first, UK is, I would say, to us, UK is Europe's largest fintech hubs, and with the language, which is we commonly learn English in China as well, and a lot of banks, a lot of fintechs, marketplaces, they have headquarters serve UK as well to serving global merchants. UK provides a springboard into the Europe markets for partnership and licensing. So that is the uniqueness for UK. We don't see only ourselves, but our customers as well. So JD, Jingdong, the e-commerce group, they also have a mass investment in UK as well.
Okay. So recently, I mean, so you grow a lot through partnerships, I mean, because you are deploying your infrastructure. So I think one of your big partnership in Europe is with Worldline, so a French player. So how do you reconcile the
So the Worldline, they're dominating, I would say, in acquiring. So that perfectly reconcile our example with Stripe. So we can leverage that capability on the acquiring or their payment capabilities in Europe, while they are in reverse, vice versa. We can offer our China capability too. So that is, I would say, that's the perfect match for our European expansion.
And so how do you see Europe, like from a Chinese angle and Chinese point of view? How do you see the European market? I mean, what do you think about it?
Be nice.
The Europe market.
You can
No.
hurt our feelings. I mean, it's okay.
No, well, the European market, in terms of the market scale and potential, of course, it is much larger than UK. So the first milestone we have after the UK, we found we can replicate to Europe. So and at that echo to the China culture on speed, we actually opened both offices in the very close timing as well. So yeah, Europe is I would say once a lot of not just us, but a lot of China firms when they set foot on UK, they have this is only their first steps. They already have eyes on the European market as well.
In terms of growth, etc., I mean, for you, it must have some sort of impact. Essentially, European market, I mean, how do you, I mean, in terms of growth, etc., I mean, prospects are not, particularly sexy. So for you, how do you see Europe within the group? How do you see it evolving? I mean, you mentioned Africa a lot. So is it like a good base for you to essentially do some business with African countries, or, strategically speaking, how do you see Europe?
Yes, so strategically speaking, we have the emerging markets, but it is also interesting that we see how the money is moving around along with the business as well. We see a lot of the business owner, the merchants owner that actually lives in European or UK, having the business running under a UK company. The goods or the operations is happening in emerging markets, sourcing from China or selling to China. So we have this providing a local accounts in free regions or settlements in free regions is quite an innovation for us.
And so in terms of maybe regulation, so I mean, so it's not like the US where it's one single country. And Europe is multiple jurisdictions, etc., multiple languages, multiple everything. And how do you essentially see that, like in terms of scaling through Europe? I mean, is regulation some sort of obstacle for you and more hurdle, or how do you see expansion through Europe?
Yeah, so we have a approach on building a multi-country license roadmap. So along with UK, Europe, Singapore, US, and even UAE, and we have invest early in governance, the governance compliance to meet all different market standards. So where we need a local team on the ground of expertise to support all these frameworks and operations. So we also expect a deep flow from Chinese and ultimate beneficial ownerships and data access within the framework as well, how we get all this aligned with the local regulations. And the biggest surprise, I would say, the level of documentation diff request by the Europe regulators and the amounts of localizations needs for the product and reporting as well. So yeah, it is a lot of operation works.
Yeah, and just following on, so you mentioned the regulations, and Europe is a very regulated market. The UK is a little bit different. It's almost on its own. And then you have the Chinese space where you operate also very fast paced. But I'm not sure if there's more or less regulation there, but what would you say is the best system for building a business and scaling a business? Or would you say they all have different pros and cons from a regulation perspective?
Yes, the latter. I would say that's the great experience I had at Wise, because when we expand from Europe to APAC, we thought about that strategy as well. So at the end, I found that applies in ePay and a lot of fintechs trying to grow aboard. Usually we have a master template that you can treat that as a proof of form. And we have the local expertise, the teams to try to be around it while aligned with the local regulations. In a nutshell, we know the principles of, for example, the compliance principle. It has to be safe. You have to be traceable. How we're doing reporting and governance. So that is where we've set the framework usually for global expansion.
Makes sense. Moving on to some macro trends. So what are the tailwinds at the moment, and generally from a macro climate perspective, that you would see over the next 2 to 3, maybe 5 years, where you think, this is positive for us? And what are some of the trends where you think, okay, this could be a challenge?
I would say first of all, the challenge is we have a lot of competitors all growing in each market, trying to go across global expansion. Again, because since if you are dominating or operate in one market, you will think of next. So now we see the challenge are going like across the border as well. But the chance is the cake is still big. Looking at Swift, again, for global payment network, Swift is still dominate the whole cross-border payments. And we're not, although I'm not saying we're competing with them, but we still have the opportunity to grow all together. I think that's the key. And you see the reasons since last few years, a lot of traditional banks start to adapt the innovations, choosing the fintech rails for their payment as well. So I do see the chances. And the next, I would say AI. Of course, everything applies to AI, and same on fintech. On the AI, I would say helping the speed even faster. So I'll take an example for compliance. A lot of eyeball manual checkings during the operations can be streamlined from AI, and that helps the payment speed again.
Yeah. I mean, AI is a big technology shift, and I think it's interesting that you're mentioning that. So just a follow-on question from that perspective, in areas like AI, so with real-time payments and digital wallets, which technology shifts are you personally most excited about, and how are you positioning Yeepay to take advantage of them? So there's the AI piece, but then next to that, are there other technologies that you're also looking forward to?
So compliance are definitely one of them. Since the at Wise, we had the in-house AI, which is older generations, the machine learning apply on the compliance. And now AI, since it's serving as an agent, that will help them in the multiple layers for around the compliance, and that will really uplift the payment operations. And from there, that will improving the speed and cost as well. And so that is the one of the sector. And the other sector on AI I would say is about the treasury, how we can helping us to monitor the FX as well as the rail with different banks. Like, so it will be much more transparent. And myself, I would say that in the past we have been trying to control the information differences. I don't know how this will be the best term to say it, but like, as an owner, like, one piece of information where it was not open to public. But since AI is now you can have all this information through AI in 1 second. So that is something that we should think of, like, what is the human value? To me, I think the human touch is still the same. That kind of is irreplaceable.
And so
good to know we still have a role.
So I know you haven't been like, let's say, in post. Your mandate of CEO is relatively recent at Yeepay in the UK. But if you had to redo it again, so you join again today, what are the things you would definitely repeat at a much faster pace, and what are the things you would completely avoid doing?
I would say I will redo it again. What I appreciate was the speed again, like to be agile. That is something I appreciate in the Eastern culture, because a lot of things that we don't know how to do it. So you have to like pick it up and do a lot of trial and error. But something that I want to avoid, I try to avoid, I would say is the speed of adapting technology. Sometimes it's too soon that you put a lot of investment, and sometimes it could be too late. So trying to pick up the pace. So AI is it now comes to AI again, another transformation. Is it a bubble, or you're missing the transformation? So that is something I now, like, I think is the timing that going back again. How we adapting new technologies.
Can you give an example regarding this, like maybe something you've done too quickly or too late regarding technology, something you regret?
I would say the technology is about on investment. So I won't give the name, but say there's a new technology that we could invest, but the outcome was not like really covering the investment.
You mean Yeepay looked into an investment in another technology?
Not particularly in ePay, but my career in nutshell, like the company was trying to input on a new technology. It will be so. What I'm trying to tell is, like, what is the purpose on that investment is very important, and then I should have asking questions in depth on, like, how we would that investment meeting that result. Otherwise, you try something new, this new technology here, and another chance, new technologies keep coming, right? And then you try that and you lose again. So that's something I've learned. Yeah, just for example, let's bring AI again. Now AI has a lot of new AI plus application or operations, right? Every product or every new startup, it could be different. After you did the implementations, it's still a lot of hiccups. So that's the experience I had to really both do a lot of due diligence, but not losing much of the time.
Okay. No, understood. And so what would be the piece of advice you would give maybe to Chinese companies coming to Europe? I mean, they don't know they don't know the countries, they don't know the culture, etc. What would you tell them when they arrive? Like, if you have to help them, what would you tell them first?
Try to bring, I would say, so first of all, they must visiting the pubs here, learning the small talks, how to drink beer. So then learn about the culture here on, like, communications, the pacing here at first, because as I said, like, back in China, they care about on the short term return. So one of my past company, they thought about global expansion as well. But when they investing 6 months and then 1 year, can keep spending a lot more investments, but they don't see the revenue coming as large as they expect or as quick as expect, and they put this return compared to what they have in China. So let's make an example of UK itself and China. The market scale is different, right? But the input for a new investment in UK could be similar to China. Like you still have to hire a number of employees, the setup, all these is the same. So they, after some time, the headquarters, they would think back, okay, I have burned like 5 million here, and I am only expecting another 5 million after 3 years. But if I'm investing 5 million right now into a new business in China, I can see that I can expect a quick return within 1 year because they know the market. So that is the contradiction they have in mind for a lot of Chinese company. But also the hiccup is they know themselves they cannot be only they want to grow global. They want to embrace the world. So that's something they I suggest all the Chinese company must have this think ahead.
Okay. Well, on that good piece of advice, Derick, I want to say thank you for being with us on Aulium. I mean, it was very interesting to see your perspective between China and Europe. I mean, us too with Markus. I mean, we are Europeans. German and French represent. So it was quite interesting. I mean, to understand how you saw all the continent and try to see some differences in the work culture. So thank you very much for being with us, and I hope you'll be with us soon again. If you have anything like to announce, you know where we are. So Markus, thanks again. It was a pleasure to share to share that moment again.
Yeah, thanks
Thank you
a lot,
so much.
Derick.
Cheers.